ABC and select board, they need to read these too?
Yes, so
No, just the chair.
I'll leave the
Okay.
one, yeah.
So,
They might not have time to go.
alright. Hearing, go ahead and start our select board meeting. It is Tuesday, November 12th in Lee, New Hampshire, 6 p.m. We're gonna start with public comment. If you have public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, limit comments to 3 minutes, and address them to the board. Any takers this evening? Okay. Then I'd like to open the public hearing to accept a town street pursuant to RSA 674:40-A.
I have some information on this if you have questions, but at this point, it has passed engineer approval, it has passed DPW director approval, and we have the $3,000 that was recommended as the bond amount in an escrow account.
Okay, any questions? Questions? Public comment? Fire chief is indicating he's happy. The road, okay. Okay, then I move to accept the new street. Was it Brayson? I can just make some wording here.
Here's the other
Move to accept Brayson Lane as a town-owned street and ROW and approve the maintenance bond of $3,000 as recommended by the town engineer. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Apologies.
Make those residents happy because it ensures that the town will be plowing their road should it snow soon.
I'm sure they were very excited. Welcome to the town. Okay. Do we need to officially close the hearing?
You do.
Okay, I'm going to now close the hearing to accept Bryson Lane as a town street. Wait a second. Can you go?
Oh.
Yes.
Sorry. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Chief, Brownsville. There's too many chiefs here today. You have to say chief.
Talked to Sergeant Libby. He said he would just assume take pay in lieu of. I did explain that this would be the last time he needs to start using his time.
Okay. Questions? Comments? No? Okay. Then I move to grant an exception to the pay in lieu of requirement of having reached 10 years of service with the town of Lee and approved 1 week of vacation time as pay to Corporal Brian Libby instead of taking the time off.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Let's see. Andy?
Pardon?
You're up. Right here.
Oh, okay.
What do you got for us today?
Okay, I have a couple of items that I put forward. I'll start with the memorandum of understanding between the town of Lee and the Library Board of Trustees. I think it's important that we adopt an MOU. I brought this up a few months back. There were some questions about it. I went through the MOU, and this is an MOU that our legal counsel gave me that was used about 1.5 years ago to settle potential legal action between the Sutton Select Board and the Sutton Library Trustees. We went through it and adjusted it to better fit Lee, but this was her recommendation, and she's actually done 7 or 8 memorandums of understanding for towns between the select boards and the library trustees. I know there was some concern the previous one I presented that it did not have enough specific detail about charges and contracts, and she was very adamant that your memorandum of understanding should not get into the minutia of contracts. She said if you want to have a separate lease agreement or, power purchase agreement, something like that, by all means you could do that, but your memorandum of understanding should be just that, a memorandum of understanding, and this was the format that she recommended. It is in draft form, and I did send a copy to the library trustees as well. Deb Chandra did get back to me. She has not given me any specifics that she disagreed with or that the trustees disagreed with. I'm not sure that the trustees have had a meeting, though, yet to talk about
We're
it.
meeting on Wednesday,
Yep.
tomorrow.
One thing, the issue that we've been having with the outside siding,
Mhm.
does this cover those kinds of things? Does it seem to?
It does to an extent, and I could make that a little more stringent, but essentially it points out that contracts regarding the building run through the Board of Selectmen and/or the town administrator. And I think that does. Part of the siding problem was that didn't get any particular overview. The library trustees did give me the milestone contract before they signed that, and we ran it past legal counsel. And I think this sort of codifies that, makes it a little more direct that needs to happen for any changes to the building.
Has Steve looked at this too?
Steve has not looked at the final version of this. I've talked about it with Steve.
I'm sorry, but you did talk to him about it?
Yes, and I will give him a copy of the draft. I wanted to
Okay.
show it to the board first.
Okay, all right.
And this is essentially, it seems like a few months ago, but I guess now it was probably about a year ago, Steve and I went to a library trustees meeting together, and most of what is in this memorandum of understanding was things that Steve talked about directly with the library trustees,
Okay.
with regard to care of the building and snow removal, that type of thing.
Okay. Because other than the board, he has a lot of responsibility for these things. So.
My recollection is that his primary comment was that he did not want to be responsible for gardening, for the flowers, the shrubbery, and items like that.
All right. Taking questions?
Mr. Tappan?
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. If you're not insulted by this MOU, you should be. After the library trustees have had control of what goes into the building, you will now be responsible for maintaining some of it. It's bad government to set up that perverse incentive. You should not be agreeing to this tonight.
I would say that this MOU is not very different from what a large number of communities in New Hampshire use. It has legal approval. If there are items that want to be changed, it can certainly work at removing portions that are troublesome, but I'm very comfortable presenting this MOU to the select board.
So, I propose that you have Steve look at it, and let's hear from the trustees when they meet on
Wednesday.
and let's go from there. I don't know if the other two select persons are in agreement with that.
Yeah. It's not the MOU itself, it's the timing.
Well, I want to see what other, because Steve's going to have a big say in terms, because he has to support it, so.
Yeah.
I will certainly get a copy of this to Steve, and I will, I need to talk to the library trustees anyway before the end of the week, so I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Do the trustees have a line in their budget for maintenance and such that they use for upkeep of the building, or is it all just coming out of the trust?
I don't have the actual library budget with me this evening.
Well, okay, I have the presentation. There's not much in that line item, but I was just curious what then.
No,
they're
traditionally the
thinking is-
town has handled it.
Okay, well, they requested in 25 and 26, so I guess my question would be, what what they're gonna use that for versus what they think we're going to do as
Mhm.
well in our
Okay,
budget.
I can get a differentiation.
Mrs. Tappan?
Ann Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. This is a curious document. Much reads like an operations manual for the library. Then there's the maintenance section. This reads like a document between an outside entity operating within the town. The select board should be very careful about entering into such an agreement. The full ramifications of the proposed conditions need to be carefully considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
You get too many controls down
I know, it's like tilted forward.
there. Don't
It's not
ask
even
Denise
facing-
which one, because then you'll end up on the floor.
Yeah, I wasn't going to.
Were you trying to go up, down?
I'm trying to not be tipped forward, is what I'm, like, it's,
This one of these.
sorry, everybody, I'm like tipped wicked forward, I
Yeah.
can't, like I'm fall out of my chair. Yeah, I guess I have the same question about the maintenance. I just wanna know what if this Steve thinks he's already doing anyways. And it does seem like it's gonna, everything's gonna go through you, so they're not going to be calling Steve or other people at DPW to, in the middle of the night to, I don't know, change batteries or whatever. That I believe was previously a concern. So I would like Steve's opinion on if this changes things in his view.
Yeah, and I don't think it does, but I will certainly get Steve's opinion
Thank you.
and maybe see if he can attend the next meeting as well.
Okay. Any other comments about the library MOU? All right, so we'll go back to that then. COLA policy.
Yeah, the other thing that I am floating, not sure if the board approves or not, but I talked to several other communities about COLA and what they use for an index and how they present it. And in my years as a select board member and my years here as a town administrator, it seems to be a little bit all over the place, and people offer personal speculation on what COLA should be and that type of thing. I actually, this is a policy that Atkinson and Salem share. They implemented it a number of years ago and said that it works quite smoothly, takes the guesswork out of when COLAs are offered, prevents things from like skipping COLA for a couple of years and finding yourself in a hole with certain employees, that type of thing. So I stole it and rewrote it to Lee's specifications, and I'm presenting it to you, thinking that it might be a policy that would make the COLA process a little easier.
Once again, I'm hearing stealing, so.
Right.
Borrowed. You are giving credit.
It's a common town administrative tactic.
Ooh. The part of it that I don't like is the middle section here.
Mhm.
So if the CPI is 0, you're gonna give them 2% no matter what. The nature of COLA is cost of living. To keeps track of, you're paying somebody $10,000 and prices went up 10%, you need to give them the difference or they're like basically losing money. So I don't like that middle section, especially if the CPI is like 5%, you're only gonna give them 3.
Right.
So I don't particularly like that section.
I did put a caveat, well, I didn't put it in there, it was already in there, that the select board may increase the COLA above, but I could also
Yeah.
put something with 0.
Well, it also gives expectations for people as well, so.
Yeah.
So what would you rather the 2% COLA rate if CPI is greater than 1 and less than 3?
Well, I would like to leave it in terms of if you're gonna give COLA, whatever the COLA happens to be. The other thing with this particular thing is you're detecting the COLA at, October through December. But that's going to be for, 18 months in the future too. So you're gonna either be behind or possibly ahead. But I'd rather have it, whatever it happens to be, for that particular, and you reference in terms of the Northeast Regional at the bottom here too, so.
Yeah, and typically they post the Northeast Regional by quarter, was why
Yep.
Well, we have to do it the only option is to do it in October, December, because that's when budget season.
I understand that.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like set in stone. But
So you don't want a policy at all?
no, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I
I'm
don't like
confused
this dictating in terms of what this range thing is. if you're gonna do cost of living is the cost of living, whatever that happens to be. So if the cost of living is 0, you're giving them more than the cost of living. Cost of living is 5%, you're giving them less. So it's not,
So you want it to be equal to whatever the CPI is?
if that's what you're doing, cost of living. So if we're paying Denise $10,000 and the cost of living goes up 10% and we're still paying her $10,000, she's just lost.
I understand the math, we've never.
I think you would.
I don't think that we've ever had our COLA and our CPI ever be equal.
No, because you're always behind.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think this is trying to give a minimum COLA,
Yeah, I'd
not
look,
a maximum.
I'd look back through the history of COLAs and adjustments in Lee over probably the past 11 years, and it's erratic. There was years where the CPI clearly went up and there was no COLA. There were years when bonuses were declared for all employees instead of the cost of living adjustment. There were years when bonuses were declared for some employees instead of a cost of living adjustment. There were years when there was a healthy cost of living adjustment, and I guess my thought was just to try to make it a smoother process, but I can certainly incorporate whatever the board wants into the policy.
I have no problem with this being the minimum.
2% minimum, quarterly adjustments to the cost of living based on whatever the COLA is, the CPI.
What do you think?
I'm against it.
Okay.
I like the policy, but I don't want the specifics. If you're gonna give a COLA, give it for what it is, not ranges and stuff like that.
But you don't, are you suggesting we set a policy where we give COLA equal to the CPI?
If you're gonna use this COLA as a COLA, yes, that's what you should be doing.
Okay.
So why would you do something different if the COLA is 3%?
Because every year we go, what can we afford to increase this year? So.
This does not tie the hands of any board going forward. If they want to, if you want to put in whatever you've got there, the board that comes after us, whenever that happens to be, they can do whatever they want.
It's essentially a guideline. As I said, this was taken pretty much verbatim from existing policies, so that
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's fair to give people some idea of what the heck's going on in the future. No one likes to be shrouded in mystery here. But, in limbo, but I don't know that you can just say that they're going to be equal. Mr. Houghton?
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Could somebody explain this calculation that's in that last paragraph where it says you subtract the previous year's second half CPI from the current year's first half CPI, and then divide the difference by the previous year's second half CPI?
yeah, I think this is essentially it. I didn't put the problem broken out with the numbers in it. There was an example that I wasn't able to copy, but I think this is essentially getting at what Scott was talking about. It's not just taking the third quarter or the last quarter.
And then the other question is that the numbers you're using, are they unadjusted or seasonally adjusted, or? I'm not sure what this would give you.
There's so many places to look.
Yeah.
Well,
Because-
this identifies one, the Northeast Regional CPI, which is,
That's the one we usually look at.
right.
Yeah.
There's a New England one that is
Boston and,
not quite as accurate, I don't believe, for a town like Lee as the Northeast.
I don't know. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't know if this is the right way to go about it. I don't think it's a bad idea.
well, either we need to do something with it or table it till the next meeting or something else.
It's instruct me to change it to what the CPI is, or? Who was, the audit team was in the office today, as
Yeah.
was Brenda Bittner from MRI.
Yep.
We anticipate completing the 535 on Friday. I can't release the 535, the auditor has to do that now. I am also anticipating trying to track down two of you on Friday afternoon, if at all possible, to get signatures on the 535 once the auditors approve it. It's a little bit of a process. The auditors approve it. I have to press the button and send it to DRA. DRA does a review. Typically, CAT can do that in about an hour, as long as the auditors have put it, and I'm confident that the auditors are going to have everything we need in there.
Right.
And once the 535 is submitted, we can set the tax rate.
So you need a meeting for that too.
We do, and if we get everything back in short order, I may well ask the board if it's a possibility to have a brief special meeting to set that tax rate.
We do meet on the 19th, I believe. So you could do it before then if she can't get us together. Oh.
19th is just ABC.
Yeah, I don't have that on my list.
Well,
Yeah, but the
the
thing
board
is-
will be here.
Well, yeah.
We'll be here,
We could schedule it,
right?
Why would it, I'm sorry,
I
I have
don't-
ABC only.
It's just
Oh,
ABC.
ABC,
So I
sorry.
wasn't
Sorry,
expecting
never
to
mind.
be here.
I'll be here.
Y'all could, we could do it at 6 before the ABC, if you wanted to,
Or 6:45.
or 6:30.
It's not gonna take that long. Remind us in terms of the amount that got dumped into the unassigned fund balance from 2024? It was 40,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a little higher than that.
Can you provide us that information?
Yes, I'll have the historical, I'll bring the laptop, set it up, and can show you what we did last year, what you've got for unassigned fund balance. The DRA will also send me the equation sheet with the amounts you could use within their recommended percentages.
Okay.
If I get those early, I can email those to all of you as well, so you can.
So everybody knows they get extra time. Because the bills will have to go out, but you have to give them 30 days, so we're talking Christmas?
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody, here's your tax bill.
I have been talking about it with Linda and have offered Linda some assistance. Linda likes to stuff all the tax bills herself so she can personally review each bill as she puts it in the envelope. And I've suggested that if we're confident with the tax software, that maybe this is something that a group could be employed to do, so.
How many of those does she have? 17?
Several thousand.
2,500?
Okay, sure.
So let us know, because you'll have to notice the meeting and everything, so.
Yep. Under other miscellaneous, the board had inquired about the property at 201 Caleb Highway. This is the mobile home that was damaged in a car accident several years ago. We will be going to the circuit court in Dover on November 26th to see if we can get a judgment issued, which our attorneys believe there's no problem getting a judgment issued, but we have to go through the formalities.
Yep.
You're welcome to attend if you would like. It's November 26th at the Thomas Street Court at 11:30. I'm supposed to be there at 10:30 with the fire chief and hopefully Karen if she's.
Oh, fire chief have to go too?
Yeah, because it's considered a hazardous property, it's technically the fire chief or the assistant fire chief are the enforcement arm
I see.
to move against this. So
And then the process after that is?
once we get the judgment, there's a specified number of days we have to give the defendant to clean out anything they want, but then we can clean the property up and lien the owner.
For the expenses of,
The expense of cleaning up, yes,
unless they choose to clean it up themselves?
unless they choose to clean it up themselves. Okay. Which I don't believe is going to happen. I know there is some interest from abutters in the property as well, so.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
And I didn't have any other miscellaneous items.
Yes.
What?
On the September 30th, 2024 minutes, section 3A, can we get rid of, you're talking about the Public Works Director, so there's the acronym PWD and then DPW. So can we kind of like clean that up a little bit? So either say grant the Public Works Department or whatever. I don't particularly like acronyms like that unless you use them previously in the document. Just to let you know, looking at legal stuff from years and years ago, there's things that if you weren't around at that particular time, you wouldn't know what that meant. So just,
Okay. There's no concern about the other one?
No,
yeah, well,
it's tri-board.
So I need to
no, it was fine. It was just kind of weird. It was a slick version, that all the
And
stuff is
ABC. Yeah, it's
queued in
all-
together.
Yes,
Yeah, so-
yes. Okay, so we are heading the consent agenda to accept the September 24th minutes, but not the September 30th minutes? Or
if
accept
you-
them with those
with
corrections?
those two corrections.
Okay. So I move to accept the consent agenda with the corrections to the September 30th minutes.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
add the manifest and equipment form for Mr. Babcock.
Okay. Andy, may I borrow a pen from you? Because I keep stealing Dave's pen. I'll have his markers thing.
Mine is not as fancy as theirs, but
Well, right,
Put the ink
so, I
down.
mean, that's really all that really matters.
No, sitting right here,
Yeah,
I admit I'm a pen stealer.
I already signed it. She put the line on the previous page. Yeah, she's pretty sneaky. Can we put in the budget a pen for the chair so that she doesn't have to keep stealing ours all the time?
Okay, sorry. I could probably extend a red pen, but it's usually brown font.
Well, that's okay.
Is it?
Red's good.
Oh, it's good? It doesn't feel angry to you? Maybe it was or I could do Expo marker.
How about a Sharpie?
I don't have that Expo marker.
I don't trust you with a Sharpie.
Don't write on boards of Sharpies soon. All right, did you have any updates on old business?
I do not.
Okay. You said A and L for non-public?
Yes. Actually, let me get my non-public.
Somebody got to review the manifest, I assume? It wasn't you? Somebody reviewed?
Dave came
Dave
in,
came
reviewed the
in.
manifest on Friday. Okay.
I met with the treasurer and I reviewed the manifest.
Okay.
I wish I would have met with the treasurer months ago.
He had a lot of interesting.
Ben's a nice guy.
He's a good guy.
It was very informative.
You can get out of meetings faster if you don't mention soccer to them.
Just trying to call him, remember that.
Pro tip.
All right, I move to enter to non-public session, New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2A and L. Ms. Ribby?
Yes.
Ms. Benson?
Yes,
Yes. Oh,
This.
we're all like- They don't like you.
But,
Screen is so small.
I'm starting the class of that. The coaches. The team playing well in my class in the first year. So they decided I'm gonna stop yelling at the kids and just let Jackson talk to the team. Give their speech, hear the moments. They walked out, we hear the moments, give their speech. Those next 2 games, the team talked about it, trophy change, and they went, "I saw it be here." And now, I mean, he's been doing it for 2 months. So I'm starting to really get there, and I'm like slight critiquing his coach so much, like, man, I'm not gonna say that they don't do it. It's just not how I would do it, you know? The coach keeps rotating the lines because there's like too many kids sometimes. So the forwards and the D keep rotating, so they have a different partner every time they're on the ice, and it like throws them all off.
So you can't get any cohesion.
And then they play Sunday, and he kept the lines low, and then they killed them.
That's what practice is for. Switch them up. Let them play with each other.
Yeah, he played. So the week he played last in practice, Monday night, and Tuesday, Wednesday off. And drove like less than Thursday, played again Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Practice on Monday. They added a practice on Tuesday, and Wednesday off.
second.
What's up?
I guess since Andy's doing hers,
And Judy's last, do you first, and then do
takes us into the other budget. And then there's also the BOS budget. Is it going in that order or?
I don't know, maybe the district talking about Karen's supposed to go first.
Right.
The easiest going to go first.
Yeah,
And that was, I love McGregor, but
just
just,
a planning and zoning, and then it's supposed to be recreation.
I don't
Is that
know.
you?
Recreation.
I was doing the whole thing.
But if he doesn't go first, then I'll just let McGregor go first.
Can you use the projector or can you information here?
Stop.
So you already gave them their information so they can, because I'm doing the FPT after that.
Yeah, if you want to sign up, that's fine.
So, you and Greg has, so, you know,
One year I did, but
because last year was the big change.
yeah, this year it's going down, so.
It was going down. Oh, that should be pretty short.
Yeah, he called me today, he was like, no, it's just going down. Go for it. You have to make a big whole presentation.
Yeah, I trimmed mine down to like 4 pages. I was like, go through, I'm like, there's so much redundancy here. I mean, so.
Years past too, I think I was so nervous that I just like gave so much information. And now it's like knowing they have any questions when we talk.
Here's my budget, this is what increased. That's it.
And I think I at the beginning I did a lot of that to help me better understand
Right.
everything. See if I can hold Chris and see if he's got
Yes.
Fred's department. Plumbing repair of my resume. If this wasn't a job I'd cover for, but
Yeah.
the guys at
Yeah.
Ocean people want it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna need a plumber. We don't have anybody like that, because Al built the house, he's always done all the work.
So if it's here, there's something to help on top of it.
See, he flew down the stairs yesterday. Oh, what is his elbow? That's what I thought it was his elbow. And just, he's starting to do stupid stuff. Is it broken? Hello. Is he in trouble? I don't know. Hopefully that means they're hiring somebody. He's lucky if he found it on the stairs, that's all it counts. Well, so we live in a roundhouse, and the staircase is kind of like almost but it's wood. So all of a sudden, I mean, he just never stopped. So I'm like, choking up. I was down there, and he's like, from a scene of Matlock, Yeah, I know. That's really dangerous. Hi.
I'm John Tappan.
I know you're John
You know
Tappan.
me,
Jeez, of course
but
I
you
do.
don't.
I don't, John. Nice to meet you. My name is Kobe.
Oh, so the last presentation was supposed to be a CIP, but we don't have a CIP.
You're right.
So instead, we do have the FPT,
That's what I thought.
which is not a CIP.
I know.
You know that.
I know that. Of course I know
You
that.
know that.
So what are we doing
So,
tonight?
so I don't know if you're aware of this. Several years ago, I wrote a spreadsheet.
She knows about the FTP.
Okay, so
You haven't seen it yet, have you?
instead
I haven't seen it yet.
of, since we don't have a CIP this year, I was asked to present the FPT, which is considerably different from what a CIP should be. But it's a spreadsheet that lets you put in all of the expected expenditures for the next 20 years. And it automatically calculates, in order to pay for those, what appropriation is needed each year to that reserve fund. So it takes into account what does the fund start with, what are expected interest rates for the future, what is inflation expected to be for the future. On top of inflation, is there any real or quality cost increases for that
Don't
type
give
of
away your
product?
whole talk.
And so forth. So right now there's, I think, 157 line items in it. There's,
Have you updated it for this year?
yes, yeah, we're on draft 5 for tonight. Because each time I've met with department heads, in fact, sat here with them, so it's on the screen. Steve Bullock, our Public Works Director, is the one that has the most.
Yeah.
Like 75 or 80% of it is his, because he's got town buildings, he's got highway, all the stuff he's got. And those are the ones that have the most line items in them. And so he's got transfer station, he's got roads and bridges, he's got highway equipment, and he's got town buildings. And with town buildings, he's responsible for everything except the future plans of, you're gonna build a town office building, you're gonna rehabilitate the town hall, those kind of things is not his.
Okay.
Those are things that should be coming from the select board.
And where's your last name again, please, John?
Tappan, T-A-P-P-A-N.
Got it.
I started writing, I actually started thinking that this is something the town needed 6 or 7 years ago.
It's been, yes, at least that one.
Maybe 8, because I watched the select board, they take inputs from the CIP, they look at the amount that it calls for an appropriation to that fund, it looks like it's too big, they look down the list, say, well, we're not gonna buy this, so we think we could take this amount off
but there's no arithmetic going on. So you don't know you can actually do that. You don't know how it works out. And I thought there really should be a tool where when you decide to change the schedule or change the dollar amount, you would simply say, okay, so now what do you have to put in? And actually over the course of 2 or 3 years, I tried to write several versions of it and didn't manage to get it working.
I could have used this tool when I was budgeting for school board.
But it does work now.
Great.
And it also accepts, right now there's 5 additional codes for funding sources. So you can also, like with the town office building last year, they decided part of it would come from a bond, part of it would come from the reserve fund.
Okay.
So when you put in a bond, right now it only does a 20-year level principal payment. It could do other types, but it automatically calculates that and what would the payment be each year. And you can put in other funding sources, like they've had ARPA 1 and ARPA 2 money. The library has said there was going to be money from the foundation. And then you can also X out a funding source, meaning this is still on the list. We're not deleting it. But we don't know where, we don't have the money, we don't know where it's coming from. That's what it should be.
Fixing town hall, the old town hall. Yeah.
Yeah, right now, yeah. There's, if you look at town buildings. Yeah, yeah. So,
That's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Right.
The guy with the gun leaves, it's always a good thing.
well, if he leaves smiling,
I know.
that's important.
There was something we talked about with, is it the baler that he kept pushing back? Is it the
Yes.
baler? Yeah. Did he, what did you end up doing with the baler?
I don't remember.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why it's in the spreadsheet.
I'm just curious, because it kept getting pushed back in Steve's mind, and I'm like, well, you know, just because it costs a lot, if we need a baler, we need a baler. I mean, it sounds like the ones we have are gonna die, irretrievably
Yes.
die.
Yeah.
And just because he doesn't know where the money's coming from for it, doesn't mean we don't need to buy one.
I have a little presentation first, a PowerPoint that is going to take about 4 minutes, that shows how the calculations are done. Because very often when you try to push things forward or bring them back, it does not make the change you think it's going to. Steve added or changed the cost for a chipper. It went from 15,000 to 66,000.
Oops.
And of course, that increased the appropriation that's required. So then he sent me an email saying, well, change the time, move it out 5 years. So I moved it out 5 years. And the cost changed by $5. And the reason is that wasn't the appropriation that was controlling the amount you had to put in. And I've had people that didn't understand that. They want to spend a lot of time, well, what if I move this, what if I move, and if you don't understand, so they try to explain how you can look at it to see how to read it, so you don't.
They're still needing the select board.
So I was going to, there's a couple, there's something that Scott wanted me to,
Who are you?
write out.
Who do you use for plumber?
It's only
For
like
plumber?
2 days long, and then you're the only one that needs to sign it.
Okay.
But they can
Just
read it.
started.
Because you have a couple rental properties, right?
I just started looking into using this guy up on 125.
Yeah. You didn't like who you were using before?
I didn't really have anyone, on one of my properties on 5 Caliph,
Yeah.
I actually have an apprentice plumber that lives there.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's been doing all that stuff, and he's been great, so I haven't had to worry about it. But then I needed some stuff done up at our camp, so I tried another guy. And have been looking into seeing, and I've just now starting to research.
It's
like,
funny, it seems to be.
You know,
I know,
and I think I came upon one that
really, it seems to be a hard recommendation.
yeah.
I was doing, I have a leaky sink at the moment, which I actually fixed, but with the help of the guy at Obashan. But I asked him who he uses, and he doesn't use anybody because he works at Obashan. But his sister had a name, and then my next door neighbor said, oh, don't use him. I had a bad experience with him, so I'm like, this is not going well.
So the long answer is, and the short answer is, I guess,
You don't have anybody.
I usually do it all myself because I know how to do most of it. If I ever
Well-
need anything bigger done, then
Yeah, see, I was
Have
just
other
fixing
people
a
that I-
piece of PVC under the kitchen sink. I can do that. But there's a bunch of,
yeah, that's easy stuff.
there's a bunch of copper in the basement that needs to be replaced because it's old and rotten. That's
So,
gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a big job like that, and I don't use copper.
Well, no, I know, this is when Al built the house 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nobody uses copper anymore.
Nobody uses copper, no.
Yeah.
You use, anything I replace, like any pipes that need to be
PVC.
replaced like that, it's, yeah.
No,
PVC.
no, no.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
board already
So-
looked at them.
The red, the
And approved
the
what
blue,
they,
the
they
white,
are all
the,
inside, so.
I was cutting
I
a
don't
piece of it
use-
this
and-
morning
and
with
you
a
use-
stick, with
And then
a
you can
bread
make a
knife,
motion
then I
to-
found a saw.
Okay, that's fine.
We've got every tool in the world, I just don't
I
necessarily
have
know
all
what
the
they are.
tools for that stuff too.
I don't necessarily know what they are.
So, actually, if it's something easy, then,
Thank you.
I'm not a licensed plumber, but I do all mine myself and other people.
It's funny how many people say the same thing, I just do it myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
because it's so hard to get them.
well, that's the thing, that stupid leak I had under the sink, I never would have gotten anybody to come over and do that, it was too short a project. I mean, it took me and the cat was helping. She probably was more help than I was.
Then you're better off just doing it.
Yeah.
Hi.
I guess she's nothing.
They gotta
Just gotta wrap on that.
close out first.
You guys done with your meeting?
I think we're just turning it into
Hey, Scott. How you doing?
the next meeting. Yes, I will on the second. Motion to seal the minutes from non-public? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 You can't vote on that one, sweetie, sorry.
I'm just talking out loud.
I was,
You gonna sit over there? Don't sit over there, that's gonna throw me off.
sit over there.
You can always sit over there.
Put your chair over.
That throws me off.
All right. I'm short as it is, and then I have to
No, you
use
can't.
one of these short chairs. Oh, thank you.
I'm stuck on the chair.
I like have my chin on the table.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We use this right here.
You were studying, I think, good.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Town phone, take it if you want, people will call you at strange hours of the night.
No, thank
Tell
you.
you if the alarm's going off.
I'll leave it to you. The alarm's going off. Well, okay. What would you like? Do I get all the keys to the town too?
Not via the phone, but yeah. We'll get you in here. I have hard copies of the budget for people that don't have it on there. You want a hard copy, Charlie?
Sure.
That's what we're looking at tonight. I'm assuming you've got it on your phone.
Yeah, why do? I
You
phone,
want
I'm putting it on my iPad so I can write on it.
Tablet,
Case.
Where is it open? It's coming out.
I've got spares, if you'd like a copy of the budget you're looking at tonight?
Thank you. You just need one.
Okay.
I just don't. We kicked you out.
That's a problem. did you need?
I hadn't heard of that name. Well, we had a local plumber and he was hired. He done for all mercy missions. Mercy missions. I know about mercy missions.
Oh, this is you.
Me?
No.
Or is this?
I'm going to be presenting Karen's budgets, which are Parks and Rec, Code Enforcement, Planning and Zoning, and Fire Chief will be doing the other.
Right.
Is she back yet?
Karen is back on a limited basis, essentially Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning, if you'd like to see her.
She's feeling better?
She is.
She did not look okay when I saw her at the election.
No, I don't think she feels back to normal, but she's feeling better.
This is going in the right direction.
She zooms, no, she usually handles the food for the election workers, so she kind of zooms in and out around food time.
Are you wounded, Madam Chair?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I may have sprained my ankle,
oh dear, not good.
and then I ignored it,
That was
like every good mother does.
I did that when I mentioned my collision years ago. That wasn't good. That would take care of this other season.
Well, it's a good thing I don't play soccer.
I
I'm
figured.
being real honest there.
So,
Because I know ruptured their Achilles.
it was.
Kind of think she passed the meeting to you.
Oh, I know we were waiting. Are we ready to start?
Is that
We're
going to
missing,
you?
Eric.
Sure, I'll take it. Yep.
I thought we were waiting patiently.
You could.
I guess that's the sound of it.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to turn the meeting over to the ABC chair. Well, you're
Good
set
evening,
up.
and thank you very much. We've had a nice week off from meeting, and tonight we start with the fire department. Scott Nemeth, looking forward to your presentation.
I'm gonna pass it to Chris Nunlin from McGregor first.
That's very kind of you.
Ambulance service, if you want to.
Take this is Chris.
Last page. Bottom of the last page. No, top of the last page, actually.
I don't need a copy of any of my submissions.
Very good. How's that?
We have your request letter and calculation, the ambulance billing rates, and the supplemental, correct? Those three?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
As we go through, if we figure out that we're missing anything, we can cover that, so. This year, I just want to introduce one of the members of our board of directors. This is Dawn Bliss, perhaps known to some of you. It seems like you're always known to someone at a meeting. I've known Dawn for quite a few years now, and I'm still learning his resume. I learned tonight, actually, just now, that he's a former lead police officer.
Many years ago.
But I think the more relevant experience and the reason he's on our board and the reason why I appreciate consulting with him on McGregor-related things is he is currently involved with Cheshire EMS on the western side of the state and setting that whole system up. Sits on the National FEMA Advisory Council, is a former New Hampshire State Fire Marshal and Vice President of NFPA formerly. And got your start, I think it's fair to say, with McGregor and Durham Fire, right? So,
Brought nearly qualified enough.
you know, sometimes it's nice to have someone, you know, that you can call up and be like, hey, you know. So I appreciate Dawn participating in this. I want to speak to a little bit to our appropriation request and just overall how McGregor is doing. Folks may recall when I spoke to you last year, we were having some real staffing challenges in terms of paramedics. And I've talked for a long time about how important paramedics are, how they, and how important it is to have them locally. Of course, the news recently of Exeter Hospital and the stuff going on down south, I think, kind of highlights a lot of that. My standard talking point, right, though, and for those of you who are new, and just to give a single example, is that I'm an advanced EMT. If I go to someone who is in cardiac arrest, I can do most of the things they can do in a hospital to help that person get their pulse back, right? However, that person then needs medication to help them, stabilize their heart rhythm and have them keep that pulse. Only a paramedic can provide that level of skill, right? We had I'll speak to a call that I was on recently, a pediatric seizure in Lee. I personally was the first, behind Lee Fire, but the first one for McGregor there. Ultimately, we needed the paramedic to give the drugs to break the seizure, right? So what I'm happy to report is that thanks in part due to the increased funding from all the communities, not just Lee, that we serve, we've been able to really increase our pay rates enough to be competitive. And we've been relatively, in relatively good shape at the moment in terms of our paramedic staffing. Not gonna what I hate to jinx myself. So that's the good news. Some ongoing challenges and things that I've been working on last year, and certainly Dawn and others, have been legislative changes. So one of the things that I've spoken to in the past, right, is that when we go on an ambulance route,
That's a good idea. It's probably picking you up anyway, but.
when we go on an ambulance ride and we take someone to the hospital, we send them a bill. What that bill is, there's very little reflection to what we're actually going to get paid. There's a whole number of reasons for that. One of the big cruxes right now, though, is that insurance companies increasingly are saying, we don't care what the local ambulance service is going to charge. We're going to set the rate of what we're going to pay you, right? And there's a whole rigmarole to that. Senator Prentice, New Hampshire Senator Prentice, has spearheaded some legislation that I've spent a fair amount of time in Concord trying to help her and others champion. That would basically, set a higher rate for ambulance reimbursement, basically set a floor at which insurance companies can't go below, right? So that's something that we've been working on. And that, I think, is going to continue to be a big issue at the state level and really at the federal issue, or at the federal level. The other thing that we're dealing with is really rising capital costs. So one of the things I spoke to last year that we're still dealing with is that the cost of our last ambulance that we bought, which, and I can tell you, I could give you local towns, right, our local neighbors, they're spending much, much more on ambulances than we are. I mean, we're not buying bottom of the line, but we're also not buying the whatever the equivalent of the Rolls Royces are either, okay? We're very much middle of the road. The last ambulance that we bought was somewhere in the tune of $180,000. This time around, our next replacement ambulance, we're spending closer to $300,000. And that is really a reflection of the changes that happened as a result of COVID. And, we're hearing that from other local departments in terms of, like the fire departments and whatnot, in terms of their capital expenses as well. So that's something that, I think that's going to be the new normal, and that we're very, we're adjusting our budget really to meet that. And the last thing I just want to speak to, I know you often ask about our station, right? And this has been an area where Dawn's been very involved, but we are, actively having meetings to really explore a number of different options. And I think I say something to that effect every year, so we'll acknowledge that. I think, the hope is that we're hoping to make some good traction. So we've identified, we really had a lot of hopes pinned on UNH. And I think we're still definitely pursuing that. I don't want to let any of that die. And I've always taken the position that all options are on the table, right? But we've identified, and Dawn has really identified, a few other sites that would work very well, not only for our workforce, which includes our volunteers, but also, serving Madbury, Lee, as well as, the Durham community as well. And so our hope is that we've had
2 or 3 meetings in the last couple of months, and, you know, we hope to keep making good progress on that front. Is there anything that I'm forgetting, or?
I think that just basically that our appropriation request is, as promised last year, is stabilized.
Yep.
Last year was an unusual year, as you well know, but we made a commitment that we would come in with as close to level funding as we possibly could, and I think we've accomplished that. So.
Right, and that's correct. I mean, so as folks may recall, what we do is we basically figure out what is the funding gap that we're seeing, and we pass that along to the communities that we serve. Now, we do some work around fundraising. We have other programs that make some money as well, and that helps to keep the cost of the communities down. But then we come up with this bottom line figure. This year, the way that the call volume is really shifting around, the actual request to Lee is a little bit smaller. So that is the good news for you folks, is that your portion of this has actually gone down a little bit this year. I probably should have led with that.
I know, we saw it in the thing.
Chris, I was, excuse me, the situation in Exeter, when they were talking about getting rid of their EMT service, they were talking about the number of people that'll be out of a job. And I immediately thought of you and the other services being able to take advantage of those people.
That sounds terrible.
I know, but
The situation.
Be able to acquire.
Offer them an opportunity.
yes, thank
Right.
you.
Right.
So there's two sides of that, is what I'll say, right? And I think it's very much, I was at a meeting in Exeter recently, or Epping rather, where, this was being discussed, right? And I think there are a number of different things that are being looked at. The truth is we have had a number of them reach out interested in working for us. We actually are reasonably well staffed prior to all of that, and that's something we've worked hard to achieve. So we are opening the door and expanding our workforce a little bit more on the part-time and per diem kind of fill-in basis. So that will be helpful. I think the other side of it is, what we're seeing is that some local departments, because this regional service is going away, they're trying to staff up their own paramedic service. And so you have all these individual towns trying to add 24-hour paramedic service. I don't know how successful they'll be. I think it's going to be challenging for them. But so in some ways, the number of jobs have also increased as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's some talk of a regional service that might be run out of, by one of the fire departments down south. So maybe that will shake out, and that, and it won't go that way. I think it's very much still in a dynamic situation, but we have had, we've hired some, but it's not,
The good
Who's
news is
picking up those services
The-
for Exeter? Like, they're not gonna be doing it, who's doing it for that area?
that's the question yet to be answered.
Okay.
That's what they're working on now. Good news for you folks is that McGregor is stable financially, and with regard to both our paid workforce and our volunteer workforce is very vibrant, which is somewhat unusual right now in this day and age, but we're very fortunate that we have such a large cadre of not only residents who are volunteers, but also the student population that supports us. There are a number of ambulance services that are in crisis in New Hampshire right now. We're not one of them. We're going up to Grafton County next week to deal with 2 nonprofit organizations that are on the cusp of collapsing for financial reasons and for lack of volunteers. So we're going to continue to pursue a strong course on your behalf.
Some of you have heard me say this, I know, for a number of years, but there are always some new faces. It's worth noting that although we have these paid paramedics, right, and that they really provide a tremendous service and are incredibly important to the community, the bulk of our workforce is actually volunteer. And I say that, people say, well, do they get paid at all? They do get paid $1 an hour, so maybe that's not volunteer. But it is, according to the IRS, that's volunteer. And
last year, documented time, we had approximately 35,000 hours of volunteer time on behalf of the 4 communities. So that's a huge part of how we keep our costs down, honestly, right? But provide also an excellent service to you folks.
I have tons of questions. I just waited to everybody else. So, billing wise, I know that, and maybe this is a Dawn question. You've had conversations with UNH. Hopefully you've had some kind of conversation with them about if we're gonna put a new residence hall on your spot. You got 2 months to get out. Hopefully you've had conversations with them that they're gonna give you enough leeway so that you can find some other place to house your staff and also your equipment, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess what I should say to that too is that what I do take some faith in with UNH is that when COVID happened, which is, something hit the fan in that moment, right? They really were very accommodating for us. The reality is UNH, in some ways UNH has a lot to gain from McGregor, more so than the other communities, in that we provide a tremendous opportunity for their students. And I actually think, we have students who are volunteering with us who are fulfilling their capstone requirement by, their volunteerism through McGregor. So it's not, we have had the conversation, and I try not to take anything for granted, but I do also think that it would be, not in their best interest. And I think that's recognized broadly at UNH.
On one of your papers, I don't remember which it is, it talks about different insurance providers, and one of them that's not checked off is Anthem. What's up with that? Is it, they're not one of your preferred providers, or? I don't remember what document it's in. It's one of those.
Yeah, so it's probably the ambulance billing rates survey. So that's correct. I'm trying to, I could talk for half an hour on this, and I'm trying to, figure out how to do it in 30 seconds. Yeah, no, I get excited about it. No one else does. So Don's had to sit through board meetings where some ambulance service, so in New Hampshire, virtually every 911 ambulance service, right, probably every 911 ambulance service is in network with Medicare and Medicaid, the 2 big government insurances. To my knowledge, with the exception of maybe some of the huge services that do a ton of interfacility work, so like the AMR stuff, where a lot of their business is transporting people between hospital, no one is in network with places like Harvard Pilgrim, Cigna, all the other insurances that I'm aware of. There may be someone, but I'm not aware of them. There are some, Anthem has traditionally lobbied very hard for ambulance services to be in network with them. And so some services are, some services are not. And we got a question out of Durham about this, so I decided to just always start to put that out there so people are aware of what we're doing. We did an analysis, and if we went in network with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, it would end up costing us, and I don't have the exact figure for you tonight, but well over 10,000, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars a year, right? A very substantial amount of money. The cost to run the service would be the same. What we would end up doing is passing that along to the communities. So it's been a little bit of a back and forth, right? Do you go in network with Anthem? Now, in some ways, there's also the piece of it that's why should an Anthem patient have an in-network charge when a Cigna patient wouldn't, right? Because even like Dover Fire is an example of a service that I believe recently went in network with Anthem, but they're not in network with Harvard Pilgrim, for example, right? So that feels a little unfair to me. But the other piece of it is, and it is a fundamental question, if the communities were all say, we want you in network with them, we would do that, right? But just know that that would have an impact to what we have to then pass along to you folks.
The last question I have is probably a procedural one, but I noticed your tax return, you're asking for a 6-month extension. What happened? Was something delayed, or?
Yeah, so no. I think the answer, so
I think we've always, since I've been there, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 years, asked for an extension. And the
Okay.
reason for that is, it's interesting, so if I personally fail to file my tax return, right, there's a small penalty to that, but it's not, it's not tremendous. If a nonprofit fails to file their tax return, it's a multiple $1,000 penalty from the IRS. We pretty much routinely always ask for the extension because they're always granted. And the other thing is, one of the things that we do with our accountants to try to keep our audit fees down is basically say, you can wait till after April 15th or after the whatever the normal deadline is, if that makes sense, to begin our review. And so, and then they schedule us in, because we're not the only ones doing that, right? So it gives us a little more flexibility to get it done. So it's not anything bad, it is just, it keeps costs down a little bit, it takes the pressure off.
I wouldn't think Chris Lemon would do anything bad anyways,
Well,
but
that's very kind of you to say. My mom might disagree, but yeah,
she would know.
she would know.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, folks.
You guys do a nice job, thank you.
Doesn't hurt a bit.
Do you need the projector, Scott?
No,
I don't.
That's right. You're very prepared.
Welcome, Scott. And Cody.
You know everybody?
I kind of want to echo Chris's statement that the fire department and our staffing is actually doing excellent right now.
That's a nice thing to hear.
For the first time in a while, I'm not coming to you asking for any positions or anything like that. The budget that I'm presenting is just to keep what we have moving forward. What I'd like to do is just a kind of a quick state of the department that I did give out to everybody. So we're fully staffed, and that means we have a full-time lieutenant on shift with a part-time firefighter. The full-time lieutenants work a 24-hour rotation. The part-timers can work either a 12-hour shift or 24. But as of right now, 24/7, 365, we always have an officer on shift. The assistant chief works Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday doing fire inspections and helping me with operations, and I work Monday through Friday. Our roster, currently we have 24 employees, 5 of which are full-time, myself and the lieutenants. We have 16 part-time firefighters, 10 of which are full-time on big departments such as Manchester, Concord, Dover, Durham. So they're bringing that experience in, and what we've seen is that a lot of the people that started here as part-timers or call members have now come back. So they're, we did pay for their training years ago, and now they're kind of giving it back to the community as well. And we still have 3 on-call members. So the projected numbers for this year that I ran, we should have about 709 calls for the year. That's a 10% increase from last year. We're roughly averaging 2 calls a day. With our full-time staff now, I've looked at the response times, and we have a 6-minute average response time to be on scene from the time we get the call. And it seems to me that every year it's actually going down a minute.
Thank you for that.
When I gave you the numbers in my report, that was from October 24th, we were at 579 calls. As of today, we're at 615, which is another 36, still keeping with the average of 2 calls a day. Already this year, we've seen an increase in building fires. We've had 6 so far. Last year, we had 2. Fires in general, chimney fires, car fires, brush fires are up by 5, and we're not done with the year yet. Fire alarm activations have almost tripled this year. Since last year, we've had 85 versus 48 last year. And we'll most likely see a slight increase in the medical emergencies by the end of the year. In 2023, we ended with 642 incidents, and it was about 1.7 calls a day. 2023 seemed to be a down year. 2022, we had 736 calls. So I kind of attribute that somewhat to Kirkwood Corners closing. We used to go there all the time. They're back open now as the haven, and we're seeing some calls, but not like we have in the past with Kirkwood Corners. budget. The increases that I have this year that I'm presenting is the full-time firefighter wages of $9,833, which is for the step increases that we've been allowed to keep over the years. The full-time firefighter holiday wages, we added another holiday as a town. And it's actually, after talking with Taylor, it's been underfunded for what the holidays have been. The part-time firefighter wages, same thing, step increases. The overtime's the biggest one. Currently, as we sit right now, we are maxed out on the overtime for this budget season. We had a firefighter out for 2 months, and we had another firefighter out for 2 weeks. And we had another firefighter out for about a week, being injured. So that's my biggest concern, is that this job, we do get injured, and sometimes they're long-term. I've had my shoulder done, and I was out for